All right, so are you ready to totally conquer some misconceptions?
Okay.
Because today we're going to do a deep dive into the Mongol Empire.
Yeah.
We've got a whole stack of books and articles right here,
Okay.
and our mission is to really uncover whether the Mongols were just these brutal conquerors
Right.
or something a bit more, you
Yeah.
might think, Genghis Khan. But trust me, this story goes way beyond just horseback warfare.
Hey, it's really fascinating how much emphasis is placed on just their military achievements,
Yeah.
To truly understand the Mongols,
Yeah.
you really need to start long before the empire even existed, like
Yeah.
back to their nomadic roots on the Mongolian steppe.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, just try to imagine an existence where you're constantly on the move.
Yeah.
Like every few weeks, you're packing up your entire home,
Wow.
a jur made of felt and wood
Okay.
to find fresh grazing land for your livestock.
That's a far cry from our modern lives. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It makes you realize how much that kind of lifestyle would just shape their culture and their values.
Absolutely.
Was it all about survival, or were there some deeper aspects to this nomadic lifestyle?
I mean, survival was definitely key,
Right.
but it went beyond just that.
Okay.
This constant movement,
Yeah.
Instilled incredible horsemanship,
Really?
almost like Olympic-level equestrian skills, but with deadly accuracy while firing arrows at a full gallop.
Wow. Okay.
It also fostered these close-knit communities
Mm.
and a deep understanding of their environment.
So it wasn't just about brute strength then. They also
Yeah.
had this foundation of resilience and adaptability
Yeah.
honed by their environment.
Yeah.
But how did they go from, herders to these empire builders?
Well, and
And for Genghis Khan, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, while most people know him as this fearsome conqueror,
Yeah.
his rise to power actually began with uniting the often warring Mongol tribes.
Okay.
He was a shrewd strategist,
Yeah.
no doubt, but also a leader who understood the importance of organization and governance,
Right.
not just conquest.
That makes sense. You can't just conquer and move on.
Exactly.
You need systems in place to actually manage all that territory.
Absolutely.
Didn't he create a legal code like the Yasa?
He did.
I'm really curious to know how that functioned in such a diverse empire.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive into the Yasa specifics a little bit later.
Okay.
But it's important to note, it wasn't simply a list of laws.
Okay.
It was more like a blueprint for their society,
Interesting.
covering everything from religious tolerance to the protection of messengers,
Wow.
even from enemy nations.
That's a detail you don't often hear.
No.
Protecting envoys, even in the midst of conflict.
It's true,
That kind of speaks to a certain level of pragmatism and foresight.
for sure.
But let's face it, their military prowess is a huge part of their story.
Of course.
What made them so formidable on the battlefield?
Well, their nomadic background played a major role. Like those horsemanship skills we talked about,
Right.
they were essential in battle.
Okay.
They could cover vast distances very quickly,
Wow.
outmaneuver their enemies,
Yeah.
and just strike with incredible precision.
Okay.
Plus, they mastered this thing called psychological warfare,
Really?
intentionally spreading rumors of their own cruelty to, demoralize opponents before a battle even began.
Talk about mind games.
Oh, yeah.
But was it all just brute force and intimidation? Weren't there
for-
some strategic and organizational elements that also contributed to their success?
Absolutely. I mean, their tactics were anything but random.
Like what?
Feigned retreats, for example.
Uh-huh.
They would lure enemies into a false sense of security
Okay.
before launching a devastating counterattack.
Wow.
And their army was incredibly organized.
Okay.
They had a decimal system that's remarkably similar to modern military structures.
Really?
Units of 10, 100, 1,000, all the way up to 10,000 warriors, which they called a guran.
So we're talking about a highly disciplined force.
Exactly.
Not just some chaotic horde.
Not at all.
This level of organization must have been essential for maintaining control over such a vast empire.
Oh, for sure.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
let's talk about the sheer size of this empire.
Yeah.
Didn't it span from China all the way to Europe?
It's truly mind-boggling when you look at a map
Yeah.
from the Pacific coast of China to Eastern Europe.
Wow.
They controlled more territory than even the Roman Empire at its peak.
That's incredible.
Imagine just the logistical challenges of ruling such a diverse and sprawling empire.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why communication and infrastructure were so important to their success.
Right.
That kind of scale demands some serious organizational skills.
Absolutely.
And they didn't just sweep at Asia, did they?
No, they didn't.
Weren't there Mongol incursions into Europe as well?
Yeah, under Batu Khan,
Okay.
a grandson of Genghis Khan,
Uh-huh.
they launched a major invasion of Europe, sweeping through Russia,
Wow.
capturing the strategically important city of Kiev
Huh?
and pushing as far west as Germany.
That's amazing.
This instilled fear across all the European kingdoms, showcasing the true reach of Mongol power.
It's one thing to conquer, but like quite another to actually rule effectively.
Right.
That's what I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
Were they simply brutal conquerors?
Yeah.
Or were there other dimensions to their rule?
Right.
Did they bring anything positive to the table?
Well, that's where we start to kind of challenge the simplistic narrative.
Okay.
The Mongols, despite their reputation for brutality,
Right.
also implemented surprisingly sophisticated systems of governance.
Okay.
They had a deep understanding of trade and infrastructure, and were surprisingly adept at incorporating existing power structures into their rule.
All right, let's unpack those administrative innovations.
Okay.
This is where the story gets really interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned a postal system, the YAM, earlier.
Right.
How did that work in practice?
So imagine needing to send a message
Yeah.
from, say, modern-day Beijing
Okay.
to Baghdad
Mm-hmm.
in the 13th century.
Yeah.
It could take months, right?
Yeah, probably.
Well, the Mongols had a solution.
Okay.
The YAM,
Okay.
this relay system of stations
Uh-huh.
spanning the entire empire,
Wow.
allowed messengers to switch to fresh horses,
Okay.
ensuring remarkably fast communication across thousands of miles.
It's like the ancient world's version of like express mail.
Exactly.
But speed wasn't their only concern, was it?
No.
They also had a reputation for promoting trade and securing trade routes, right?
Yes.
Wasn't this around the time of the Silk Roads revival?
Exactly.
Okay.
The Mongols understood that a flourishing economy relied on safe passage
Mm-hmm.
for merchants and goods.
Right.
They actively worked to secure and promote trade along the Silk Road,
Okay.
which led to a huge surge in economic and cultural exchange
Between.
between East and West.
So they were essentially facilitating globalization centuries before that term even existed.
That's true.
But it wasn't just about pragmatism, was it?
Right.
Our sources mention that the Yasa included provisions for religious tolerance,
Yes,
which seems pretty forward-thinking for the time.
it was indeed.
Yeah.
While Genghis Khan himself followed Tengrism,
Okay.
the traditional Mongol belief system,
Mm-hmm.
the Yasa expressly forbade the persecution of people based on their faith.
Mm-hmm.
Buddhists, Muslims, Christians,
Wow.
all were allowed to practice freely within the empire.
That's pretty remarkable considering the religious conflicts that were raging in other parts of the world at that time.
Absolutely.
Was this tolerance truly universal, though?
I mean,
Or were there any exceptions to this rule?
while there were certainly instances of conflict and tension,
Right.
the overall principle of religious freedom under the Yasa was a major contributing factor
Yeah.
to the stability and cultural exchange that characterized the Mongol Empire.
It makes you wonder how different history might have been. Yeah.
If more rulers had adopted that kind of approach.
Right.
Speaking of cultural exchange,
Yeah.
what were some of the lasting impacts of the Mongols on the cultures they encountered?
Well, think of it as this vast network of interconnectedness,
Okay.
fueled by Mongol rule,
Uh-huh.
gunpowder and printing technologies
Okay.
originating in China,
Right.
traveled westward along the Silk Road.
Okay.
Mongol rulers in Persia incorporated Persian artistic and administrative practices, creating this incredible fusion of cultures.
So it was a two-way street.
It was.
What about Mongol culture itself, though?
Mm-hmm.
Did it leave a lasting mark on the regions they conquered?
Absolutely.
Like
The
how?
Mongol artistic motifs, especially in textiles and metalwork,
Hi.
appeared in Persia, China, and even parts of Europe.
Really?
And their horsemanship and military tactics
Yeah.
influenced warfare for centuries.
It's important to note that this exchange wasn't always peaceful, of course.
Right. Their conquests weren't exactly known for their gentleness,
Right.
but even in those instances,
Yeah.
there was still a degree of cultural transmission happening,
Oh.
albeit under duress.
Right.
It really highlights the complex legacy of the Mongols.
Exactly.
They defy easy categorization,
Did you?
ruthless conquerors,
Yeah,
yes,
they did.
but also cultural innovators
Yeah.
and agents of change
For sure.
This complexity is evident in their approach to governance as well.
Right.
Did they rule in the same way across their vast empire?
I mean,
Or did they adapt their methods to different regions?
well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine a single system working effectively across such a diverse range of cultures and societies.
Right.
They were remarkably pragmatic rulers.
Right?
Take China, for example.
Yeah.
When Kublai Khan,
Okay.
Genghis Khan's grandson,
Uh-huh.
established the Yuan dynasty,
Right.
he didn't try to just erase Chinese culture.
Okay.
He adopted the title of emperor, maintained the Confucian bureaucracy,
Okay.
and even commissioned grand canals and public works,
Wow.
all in line with traditional Chinese practices.
So he strategically blended Mongol rule with existing Chinese traditions.
Exactly.
It sounds like a pretty shrewd way to consolidate power
Yes.
and minimize resistance.
Absolutely.
Did they take a similar approach in other parts of the empire?
Well, in Persia,
Okay.
the Ilkhanate initially had a more disruptive approach.
Okay.
They overhauled the tax system,
Uh-huh.
clashed with the Persian bureaucracy,
Okay.
and even tried introducing paper money,
And how did that go?
which didn't exactly go as planned.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But over time, they adapted,
Oh.
adopting Persian customs,
Yeah.
supporting the arts,
Okay.
and even converting to Islam.
It seems they learned that sometimes it's better to work with existing systems
Right.
than try to force change from the top down.
Exactly.
Their ability to adapt and integrate is pretty impressive, though. It really challenges the notion of them as purely destructive conquerors.
They were far more complex than that.
Yeah.
They were organizers,
Right.
innovators,
Mm-hmm.
and surprisingly effective administrators.
Right.
And let's not forget their contributions to trade and infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Silk Road.
Yeah.
But what other innovations did they bring to the table?
Well, their empire wasn't just about conquest.
Okay.
They built a vast network of roads and bridges,
Okay.
facilitating trade and communication.
Huh?
They standardized weights and measures,
Really?
introduced a form of passport system,
Interesting.
and even experimented with paper currency.
They were ahead of their time in many ways.
Yeah.
It's incredible to imagine the logistical challenges
Right.
of managing such a vast empire.
Yeah.
Their ability to build and maintain infrastructure on that scale is remarkable.
It really is.
But even the greatest empires eventually fall, right?
They do.
Yeah.
The Mongol Empire, despite all of its achievements,
Yeah.
ultimately succumbed to internal divisions,
Okay.
overextension,
Uh-huh.
and external pressures.
It seems like a recurring theme throughout history.
It is.
Empires become victims of their own success,
Right.
growing too large and unwieldy to manage effectively.
Exactly.
And we can't discount those external pressures either.
Of course not.
They faced resistance from various groups within their conquered territories
Right.
and the rise of new powers.
Yeah.
Like the Ming dynasty in China also contributed to their decline. So it was a combination of factors that ultimately led to the end of the Mongol Empire.
It was.
But even though their empire is long gone,
Yeah.
their legacy continues to shape our understanding of history, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Mongol Empire, despite its relatively short lifespan,
Right.
left an indelible mark on the world.
Yeah.
Their conquests redrew the map of Eurasia.
Uh-huh.
Their innovations spurred cultural exchange and technological advancements.
Right.
And their story continues to fascinate and intrigue us, even centuries later.
That's a perfect segue to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've explored their rise and fall,
Yeah.
their innovations and
Yeah.
their complexities. Now it's time to grapple with the big question.
Okay.
What is their lasting legacy?
Right.
Are they remembered solely as brutal conquerors?
Yeah.
Or is there more to the story?
That's the question.
Yeah.
I mean, their impact extends far beyond the borders of their vanished empire.
Okay.
They were a catalyst for change
Uh-huh.
on a global scale,
Really?
influencing everything from trade routes to cultural exchange and even the trajectory of warfare.
We've talked about their role in promoting trade along the Silk Road and kind of facilitating the exchange of ideas and technologies.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that they were essentially laying the groundwork
I thought
for a more interconnected world?
Absolutely. Their emphasis on trade and open communication
Mm-hmm.
really helped to break down barriers between cultures and regions.
Yeah.
And I think that set the stage for the interconnected world that we live in today.
That's interesting.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Gunpowder and printing technologies,
Right.
both originating in China,
Yeah.
made their way to Europe thanks to the Mongols.
That's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is.
Those innovations had a huge impact on the course of history.
Absolutely.
What about their military innovations?
Yeah.
Did their tactics and strategies influence other armies?
Oh, their military achievements are undeniable.
Okay.
The Mongol cavalry,
Uh-huh.
known for its speed and deadly archery,
Right.
became a model for other armies.
Oh.
Their tactics,
Yeah.
particularly feigned retreats and encirclement,
Okay.
were studied and adopted by military leaders across Eurasia.
So their military influence extended far beyond the battlefield, then
Yeah.
shaping warfare for centuries to come.
It did.
But what's really fascinating to me is their approach to governance.
Yeah.
We've seen that they were very adaptable, incorporating existing power structures into their rule.
Right.
Is this a common thread throughout their empire?
Yeah, it's definitely a key aspect of their success.
Okay.
Like in China, for instance.
Uh-huh.
They adopted the Confucian bureaucracy
Okay.
and even commissioned grand public works projects,
Really?
aligning themselves with existing traditions.
Okay.
In Persia,
Yeah.
they eventually integrated into the administrative system,
Okay.
even converting to Islam.
Wow.
This adaptability allowed them to consolidate their control
Right.
and maintain stability
Across.
their vast empire.
It paints a very different picture
Yeah.
than the stereotype of ruthless barbarians
Right.
simply imposing their will on conquered populations.
Exactly.
They were much more strategic and pragmatic than that.
Oh, absolutely.
They really were.
And that's what makes studying the Mongols so compelling.
Okay.
They challenge our preconceived notions.
In what way?
I mean, yes, their conquests were often brutal, but they were also incredibly sophisticated rulers
Yeah.
who fostered trade,
Uh-huh.
cultural exchange,
Right.
and even technological innovation.
It seems their story is full of contradictions.
It is.
It's making it difficult to define their legacy neatly.
Right.
But isn't that true of like most historical narratives?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The Mongol Empire, despite its achievements,
Yeah.
ultimately succumbed to internal conflicts,
Okay.
overextension,
Right.
and the rise of new powers.
So it was kind of like a perfect storm
Yeah,
that
sure.
led to their decline.
Yeah,
It makes you think about the cyclical nature of history,
it does.
the rise and fall of empires.
For sure.
What lessons can we,
Yeah.
living in the 21st century,
Uh-huh.
learn from the Mongols?
Well, I think their story offers several valuable insights.
Like what?
First, it highlights the interconnectedness of our world.
Okay.
The Mongols,
Yeah.
despite their often brutal methods,
Right.
facilitated interactions and exchanges
Mhm.
that shaped global trade,
Yeah.
culture, and technology
In ways
in ways that still resonate today.
It's a reminder that even in a world seemingly divided by vast distances and conflicting ideologies,
Yeah,
there are forces that connect us,
absolutely.
driving innovation and exchange.
For sure.
That's a good point.
Second,
Yeah.
their story reminds us that power is rarely simple.
Okay.
The Mongols were both ruthless conquerors
Yeah.
and surprisingly adept administrators, capable of great brutality and surprising cultural sensitivity.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is.
It challenges us to look beyond simple labels
Yes.
and recognize the complexities of history.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that there's always more to the story
For sure.
than meets the eye,
Huh?
and that we should constantly be questioning our assumptions.
Absolutely.
Good advice.
And finally, their rise and fall reminds us that even the greatest empires were not immune to the forces of change.
Right.
Internal divisions, overextension, and the emergence of new powers
Right.
all contributed to their decline.
So it's a lesson in the importance of adaptability,
Yes.
foresight, and understanding the ever-shifting dynamics of power.
For sure.
Those are all good lessons to learn.
They are.
So while the Mongol Empire may be long gone,
Right.
its echoes reverberate through history.
Absolutely.
Their story challenges us to think critically about power,
Yes.
interconnectedness, and the forces that shape our world.
Absolutely.
And that brings our deep dive into the Mongol Empire to a close.
Okay.
We've explored their military achievements, their innovations, and the complexities of their legacy. It's a story that continues to fascinate and provoke,
It does.
reminding us that history is never as simple as it seems.
Very true.
Hopefully this deep dive has inspired you to continue exploring this fascinating period of history.
It's a great period.
There's always more to discover and learn.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning,
Yeah.
and keep those history gears turning.
Love it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've explored the vastness of the Mongol Empire, their military might, their surprising innovations in governance and culture. But now we're facing the ultimate question: what's their lasting legacy? Are they remembered just as brutal conquerors, or is there more to the story?
I think their impact, extends far beyond the borders of their vanished empire. They were a catalyst for change on a global scale, influencing everything from trade routes to cultural exchange and even the trajectory of warfare.
We've talked about their role in promoting trade along the Silk Road and facilitating the exchange of ideas and technologies. Is it fair to say that they were essentially laying the groundwork for a more interconnected world?
Absolutely. Their emphasis on trade and open communication helped to break down barriers between cultures and regions, and that set the stage for the interconnected world that we live in today.
Yeah.
Think about it. Gunpowder and printing technologies, both originating in China, made their way to Europe thanks to the Mongols.
That's a mind-blowing thought.
Yeah,
Those innovations had a profound impact on the course of history.
for sure.
What about their military innovations? Did their tactics and strategies influence other armies?
Their military achievements are undeniable. The Mongol cavalry, known for its speed and deadly archery, became a model for other armies. Their tactics, particularly feigned retreats and encirclement, were studied and adopted by military leaders across Eurasia.
So their military influence extended far beyond the battlefield then,
Yeah.
shaping warfare for centuries to come.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating to me is their approach to governance. We've seen that they were adaptable, incorporating existing power structures into their rule. Is this a common thread throughout their empire?
It's definitely a key aspect of their success. Like in China, for instance, they adopted the Confucian bureaucracy and even commissioned grand public works projects, aligning themselves with existing traditions in Persia. They eventually integrated into the administrative systems, even converting to Islam. This adaptability allowed them to consolidate their control and maintain stability across their vast empire.
It paints a very different picture than the stereotype of ruthless barbarians simply imposing their will on conquered populations.
It does.
They were much more strategic and pragmatic than that.
Oh, absolutely.
They were.
And that's what makes studying the Mongols so compelling. They challenge our preconceived notions. Yes, their conquests were often brutal, but they're also incredibly sophisticated rulers who fostered trade, cultural exchange, and even technological innovation.
Yeah, it seems their story is full of contradictions, making it difficult to define their legacy neatly.
It is.
But isn't that true of most historical narratives?
History is messy.
Yeah, it is.
The Mongol Empire, despite its achievements, ultimately succumbed to internal conflicts, overextension, and the rise of new powers.
Right, so it was kind of like a perfect storm that led to their decline.
It was a combination of factors, for sure.
It makes you think about the cyclical nature of history, the rise and fall of empires. What lessons can we living in the 21st century learn from the Mongols?
Well, I think their story offers several valuable insights. First, it highlights the interconnectedness of our world. The Mongols, despite their often brutal methods, facilitated interactions and exchanges that shaped global trade culture and technology in ways that still resonate today.
It's a reminder that even in a world seemingly divided by vast distances and conflicting ideologies, there are forces that connect us, driving innovation and exchange.
Absolutely. Second, their story reminds us that power is rarely simple. The Mongols were both ruthless conquerors and surprisingly adept administrators, capable of great brutality and surprising cultural sensitivity. It challenges us to look beyond simple labels and recognize the complexities of history.
It's a reminder that there's always more to the story than meets the eye, and that we should constantly be questioning our assumptions.
For sure. And finally, their rise and fall reminds us that even the greatest empires are not immune to the forces of change. Internal divisions, overextension, and the emergence of new powers all contributed to their decline.
Right, so it's a lesson in the importance of adaptability, foresight, and understanding the ever-shifting dynamics of power.
It is.
Those are all good lessons to learn.
For sure.
So while the Mongol Empire may be long gone, its echoes reverberate through history. Their story challenges us to think critically about power interconnectedness and the forces that shape our world.
Absolutely.
And that brings our deep dive into the Mongol Empire to a close. We've explored their military achievements, their innovations, and the complexities of their legacy. It's a story that continues to fascinate and provoke, reminding us that history is never as simple as it seems.
It's a story worth exploring further, for sure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those history gears turning.
I like that.